the Angry Capitalist Podcast. I trust this evening finds you well. Once again, this is the Angry Capitalist Podcast, episode 16. Goddamn, time is flying by. In this episode, I'm going to be discussing 5 cash flowing assets that you can get primarily just through sweat equity. As a brief disclaimer, there may be some cost associated with these, but this is not like buying real estate or stock or a business, anything like that, that you need to pay the full amount of capital to acquire this asset. What I'm referring to are things that you can largely do even if you live in an apartment. This was brought up by a friend of mine who, a friend of his, had been paid, I believe, $20,000 just to license some footage that this guy had. Now, keep in mind, he had been doing that for quite a while, and this was just a bit of a stroke of luck that he managed to land onto. But it got me thinking about this, and the aforementioned friend of mine had brought this up like, hey, this may be a cool idea for you to discuss. What are some different assets that people can buy that will pay them cash after they have it set up? And it's primarily just through doing the work to go ahead and get these and to start bringing in cash flow even when you're asleep. So, getting into it, cash flowing assets that you can acquire or build via primarily sweat equity. Now, for those of you who don't know, sweat equity really just means hard work. Not necessarily hard work in the sense of saving up the money to buy these, but you just put the work in to produce this asset and then you lease it or license it out thereafter. So, number 1 at the top of this list is stock photography. This can be photos of people, places, animals, think scenery, think background images of people at a park or in a public setting. A brief note on this, by the way, before I get into this, please check your local, both state and local laws and regulations in regards to taking photography or video or anything like that in a public setting especially. Sorry, my cats are freaking out. So, stock photos of people, when I think of this, I'm thinking of primarily people doing something or interacting with other individuals or stuff in the background. When I think places, in terms of places, this could be notable cities, this could be bridges, structures, landscape, sunsets, the beach, forests, mountains, those kinds of things. And of course, animals. This could be anything from pets to wild animals. Next, in the same vein of thought, B-roll footage. So this could be footage of taken from historical reenactments that people may want to use in their YouTube videos or even their podcasts or documentaries will use this kind of footage. Additionally, and one that I think would do fairly well would be scene changes. So this is a sunrise or a sunset, weather, or if you can get a hold of it, footage of moving over or through a landscape. Think drones, think Ghibli setups, those kinds of things. Or even perhaps from a train. There's an idea, perhaps. Next up, this goes into the idea of people. This would be both crowds and interactions. So for B-roll footage, photography of crowds, people moving through a city, people at parks, people at amusement parks, crossing the street, that kind of thing. And then next, after that, in the same vein of thought, would be interactions. So once again, get permission before you take footage of specific individuals. They may want to be paid for this kind of thing. They may say, no, I don't want to do that. But it's worth asking. Quick idea on that. If you get fairly decent at this, you could even put out ads on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist to get actors for B-roll footage. So interactions, I'm thinking handshakes. I'm thinking people interacting with kids or their pets, that kind of thing. Let's see. Next up, we have sound clips. So when it comes to sound clips specifically, I'm normally thinking 15 to 60 seconds. This can be applied to music in a longer form. And if you have that capability, by all means, go for it. Here, when it comes to sound clips, I thought of birds, the sound of birds in the background, people in crowds, people shouting, that kind of thing, industry sounds. So if you happen to be near an industrial area, and if you can get permission to record background noises from, let's say, a construction site or some kind of a metalworks factory, something like that, those may do quite well. And additionally, instrumentals. While on the instrumentals category, I'm not referring to music outright, this could be something as simple as a guitar solo, the piano, violin, drums, something of that effect. Next, after that, we have clip art. I'm thinking images of stick figures, buildings, plants, accents for flyers like border artwork, that kind of thing. This then transfers over into templates. So you could go ahead and design templates for business cards, flyers, PowerPoints, so on and so forth. Now, with all of these, of course, we then have the question of how do we actually monetize this? Now, I'm not going to give too far into the weeds examples. However, if you do go to just type into Google licensing stock photos, licensing sound files, you can find sites that you can host these effectively digital assets that you just mostly put in work via sweat equity into. And you can go to these sites and they will host them, and people will go to those sites to pay to use it. Another one that I personally use, so I can speak to it, would be Canva. This is commonly used by people who are looking to make business cards, flyers. I do a lot of my thumbnails for these videos on Canva. You can tell because I'm not putting in a ton of fucking work that I'm not exactly the best when it comes to thumbnails. That being said, however, I pay for a premium subscription monthly that allows me to use stock photos, clip art, backgrounds, templates, etc., including sound and video files, that people get paid for. So be creative, be exploratory when it comes to that. Next, I want to touch on equipment, stuff that may be of benefit to you if you really want to go ahead and put the work in towards developing a portfolio when it comes to this. Some things you may want to acquire if you really want to make a go at any of these would be uh, photography equipment. This could just be something as basic as a phone with a good camera, something like an iPhone, a tripod for it. Additionally, you could get what is called a gimbal, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. It's a device that you can hold and it auto adjusts to keep your camera, including but not limited to something like a phone or an iPhone, steady, so that you can take very good still shots or moving photos. Another option that may do very well would be drones. So if you want to get flyover footage, or if you want to get footage of moving through trees, or footage from the perspective perhaps of an animal or a bird, you may also be interested in attachable cameras. This could include things such as the collar camera for cats, or even GoPros for people. Another one that I think could do very well as well would be trail cameras. You would have to do some research to find a trail camera that would suit your needs, to get a good quality image and or to record when there's movement in the environment. So you could look into getting a camera that has cell connectivity and cloud storage, and you could put some bird food out there. Or there was an image that did very well, or not an image, a video file that did very well for licensing of a bear that got hit in the junk from a tree branch or something like that. So get creative with your equipment as well. Trail cameras, GoPros, your iPhone. You can get equipment to assist taking photos with your iPhone. Sound files. When it comes to sound files, of course, a good microphone setup that is appropriate for the kind of sound that you want to capture, whether that be background noise, instrumentals, so on and so forth. Of course, you will likely have to pay for this kind of equipment. However, if you already have some of this equipment, it's really just the work of taking the photos, using Adobe, probably Adobe Pro, to go ahead and make adjustments to different things to produce these kinds of assets that you could then put onto a site and license, and once again be paid cash flow from thereafter. I do want to end this off with a brief note on the careers of photography and marketing. In my estimation, if you're interested in that kind of a career, but you're failing to have traction, or maybe you're an unlucky individual who was recently let go, in my estimation, this could be a very good way to build up a portfolio of work to then present to a potential employer. And it also shows some initiative and drive and business acumen that, hey, this person's applying for a job for me, and they have this body of work that I can review, and they actually went ahead and licensed a lot of this work. Hey, now that I think about it, because this kind of stuff is in their name, potentially they would be willing to bring that to the table as part of their employment. And I think that that is a very, very strong way to build up your resume effectively in terms of what you're capable of for employment. Likewise, if you're an individual who is in high school, college, you're in the military and you're looking at getting out of the military and going into that kind of field. Once again, think marketing, film production, photography, etc. Music production, songwriting. This could be a very good way to get some experience in that industry and pay yourself at the same time. So I highly recommend checking this out if you are interested in those fields. If you've already done this kind of thing and you have any personal stories or anecdotes, please go ahead and drop those down in the comments below. Likewise, if you have a question about getting into this kind of thing, drop that down in the comments below. I'm not going to pretend to be a full-on expert in any one of these specific fields or aspects. However, someone else in the comments, if you know about this, please check down the comments. Maybe you can provide some guidance to some of these individuals. As always, thank you and have a good evening.